Good morning, everyone. So, with our conference, day 4. It's an immense pleasure to introduce Aldo Witte from UTRECHT, who is going to tell us about the principle of T-duality.
Yes, thanks, Aldo. Great, thanks to the organization for giving it a assembly. I should say that, I was a PhD student with Gil Cavalcanti. I did it 1.5 years ago, and these days working in Belgium, in Antwerp, to be precise. So we already had some nice thoughts about T-duality and generalized scalar geometry, and that's what we're going to build upon those. So quickly we can do some recap. And let's quickly start a bit with the history of as we saw yesterday, that one of the problems of generalized scalar geometry is that there are no examples of generalized scalar structures with untwisted age manifolds. And for generalized complex structures, the question was also asked very much in the beginning. So, are there any manifolds submitting generalized complex structures who are either symplectic or complex? And the answer is yes, there are. The first manifold where such a structure was exhibited was the copy 3CP2 low number 19 points and by Cavalcanti in 2007. And well, so this is a manifold, it's not symplectic, not complex, but it has. And after that, there is an entire plethora of structures. So you can see it's probably not very well readable, but a lot of people afterwards was trying to look up examples of generalized complex structures, and these were all manifolds. These forms, so CP2, low at some point, so S2 times S2 over here. That's one of the speeds, motivated further. And yeah, I'm a little bit about it. But one thing which is interesting to note is that all these manifolds are subs, right? And well, that was not how these structures came about. So at some point, this is what I did in my thesis, is we showed that there is some procedure in the structures. So in our paper, self-crossing stable generalized complex structures, we gave them way constructing examples using connected subs. And in the end, we found these two families of manifolds. So that's a bit of, so we have these nice structures. And now, what we kind of want to do is, well, we would like to study T-duality. But what we saw yesterday as well, T-duality is a symmetry between principal correspondence. And although these structures which we have over here, many of them appear invariant with the torus action. The torus action is unfortunately not free, as we exploit. So what we were wondering about is whether we could define some theory of T-duality where we allow the torus action to be degenerate, but have some fixed points. And so that will be the goal of today's talk, trying to explain this framework we set up to talk about non-principal theory. But first, let's discuss just a quick recap of T-duality. So I lost yesterday as well, but it's early in the morning. So what's the setting? You have two principal decay bundles over the same base, together with two fluxes with three forms. So these are invariant three forms in spaces. And then we consider the diagram by as follows, where we consider the fiber products of N and L. And on that, we pull back the three form we have here and the three form we have. Now we say that N and L are T-dual if there exists some form of F on this fiber product. And what we should note is that this fiber product inherits both the TK action from M and one from N-L, so it's T2K action. So you may look for T2K invariant form, which satisfies the following properties. First, it should be the primitive of the difference between the three forms. And secondly, it should be known in general in the appropriate sense. What's the appropriate sense? Well, we consider a torus fiber, basically the torus fiber M over here, which is the kernel of this map, projection map, and the kernel of this projection map. And then we ask for this form when we restrict it to those spaces to be non-general. And what this tells you is that the fiber, this fiber here, is really replaced by the dual fiber. Right? I mean, this gives you a way to identify the space, the dual of this space. That's one way to think T-duality. If you replace torus fiber with dual. Now, what does this tell you? Well, the first thing that it tells you is that the space of invariant differential forms in there are isomorphic by this isomorphism. So what does this do? I pick an invariant differential form on M. I lift it to the space. Then I wedge it with e to the power of f. Okay, so form of that. Now I integrate over the fibers of this map, so tori. And then what I end up with is a form which is basic with respect to this projection, and hence it gives me a well-defined form. Now, what's Cavalcanti and Bolzeri realized is that this can be phrased very well in the world of generalized geometry, and to say that they consider the double tension bundle together equipped with this Courant-Goffman bracket. And then we looked at the TK invariant forms of this Courant algebroid. And then what the statement is that there's an isomorphism of Courant algebroids of the TK invariant sections of the double tension bundle here and the TK invariant sections. So the upshot of this is that it allows you to transport TK invariant structures on M to TK invariant structures on M. So I have some TK invariant Dirac structure and will be sent to the TK invariant Dirac structure. Generalized complex, which is the generalized complex, and generalized scale, and generalized scale. And there are many more structures which you can discuss over here. This clear? Yes.
What's the role of the torus? I know that I'm thinking why this construction can be not made in general. If the two actions are supposed to converge on the.
There are definitely variants. Definitely not expert on that, but there are definitely variants of this structure where you look at other kinds of groups acting that is possible with the T-duality, and where I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be torus. But yeah, that's quite interesting because torus is a median.
So I mean, this torus, this is just this torus doesn't need to have a complex structure. It can be any.
Yes, actually, torus can be any.
But is there some extra component torus that need some complex structure or algebraic variety?
I wouldn't know. Okay, so this is the framework which we have. Now what we would like to do is see how much of this remains if we allow for the torus action. So the first thing we have to do is we have to fix the kind of actions which we want to consider. The actions here is nothing more than the actions tori which have embodied varieties. I just don't necessarily want to put that as an input that I actually have embodied variety. Just want to have the action. So then that's why just give the definition of the following form. So we consider the ends manifold of some dimension. And we call it standard. This is not standard terminology. Use if locally around every orbit and that has some kind of form. Try to get put it the other way. Here. So we ask them locally torus action on set one. Okay. Well. Okay. So we first ask that we have some copies of C where our torus simply acts by the rotation of the circle. It's copy. And it acts freely on the copies of the torus which are there. Does nothing. So I mean, really, the most important example, just the action on T2. C2, we just rotate. So this is really actions. And these are the kind of sketches which you want to study. Now, the point somehow is that these things are singularity, right? So we want to somehow have some gadget which can capture for us the singularities of the story set. And we'll use some version of the device over here. The real device is not exactly to count in algebraic geometry, the slight comparison.
Just to check, this torus actually is on CN or DN or the torus.
Oh, that's
But when you say that it's standard, you are assuming already that you have a decomposition of the trivializing.
I mean, I'm just asking that there are a lot of models around the orbits of this form.
I see. So after all, you're patched together a group reaction on the whole manifold.
Yeah, so there is some action on the whole manifold.
And this should be like an open for some certification of the manifold.
I mean, the manifold will be stratified by the orbit type of the action. I mean, this is like a simple example. I mean, of course, but as I said, toric geometry. So important example, of course, would be T2 acting on CT2. And then you have like the usual stratification. Okay. So we want some kind of gadget capturing the singularities of this action. We use the elliptic device. What is this? Well, this is an ideal function. Real value functions, which again is defined as some kind of local. There are several ways to do it. The easiest way is just asking for consistent certain local coordinates. And we ask that there are certain local coordinates, local complex coordinates, let's say Z1, Z L, but actually real coordinates as well, such that the ideal is simply generated by distances to the origin. So sometimes I'll also write Ri squared. So I have some collection of some ideal functions which is locally generated by the products of distances to the origin in us. And now, why do I want this gadget? Well, because this is what is underlying one of these actions. So in principle, also, there's actually, like often in examples, it will be a half-dimensional thing, you start with geometries, well, of course, most of it itself. But now, what we'll find,
Excuse me, could you explain what is GI and RI?
which is Ri.
Yeah.
I mean, there are complex coordinates, local coordinates, of which I put the first couple ZL, and then I have whatever any left of real coordinates, so just some coordinates. And I want my ideal to be generated by the absolute value squared of these coordinates, and I'll just divide R squared for
Is it kind of coordinated free idea?
the ideal itself. Yes, the ideal is a global object, but I ask for the existence of local coordinates where it happens. So we consider one of these standard torus actions. Now, what we will see is that one of the nice things, from geometry, is that this is a manifold of coordinates. Now, this is implied directly by the local torus action. And even more, what I can do is I can consider the ideal of functions on this manifold of coordinates which vanish at the power of the node. So like the real device. And if I let's say, 5 nodes quotient map, and all these normal forms for me will ensure if I consider the full vector, and this is an elliptic device. So because the quotient map, because of the nature of the torus action is quadratic, so these linearly vanishing functions will come back. And now, why do we do all this? Well, this somehow allows us to view. This somehow allows us to view the torus action as a free thing in the appropriate sense. And to do that, we'll make use of the object, which also occurred a couple of times. The definition, there's lemma. If you have one of these devices, what you can do is you can consider the following collection of vector fields. You ask them to preserve this idea. And now, what you can show is that this defines a locally free sheet. Hence, there will be some vector bundle. Yes. which has as its sections precisely these vector fields. And now, well, it's not difficult to see that this space is closed under the Lie bracket. So if we endow this with the Lie bracket of vector fields, and we look at the inclusion, then we'll see that this space here will become the opposite.
Just a question. Is it, are you allowed any just manifold or can be like a polychord group?
For our purposes, M is just an
Manifold.
amendment, yes. But in principle, quite a bit of the theory could also go through for
Polyc action.
yeah. That could definitely be possible. But for simplicity, it's what we're doing. So in the end, the conclusion is that I have many algebroids. This guy I call the elliptic. The algebroids like this have been around, especially in Poisson geometry for a long time now. And they're really used to study geometric structures with mild singularities. They'll start with the B tangent bundle. Melrose, which was used to study the idea of the single index theorem, and then later it became very fancy Poisson geometry to study these steps. Let me just say one word about proof of this definition. It's just applying the fact that we have this particular local form of my ideal. I think I just write it down in coordinates what precisely these vector fields are. This is locally generated by following things. All right. And then whatever real coordinates which are still left. But here it's RI. This is the rotational vector field, and this is the radial vector field. And this guy is the rotation. Now, what we can do is we can use this Lie algebroid to desingularize. Okay. Go quick vaccination. Good. Shouldn't lose that. And what do I mean with that is, well, we can look at the infinitesimal action. So now I am assuming
The bracket that you were considering indicating was some Poisson structure on the regular functions. It's very interesting.
you mean
Like making some correspondence between the brackets on the for the vector fields and some
so it's definitely true in general. I mean, you know that like Lie algebras correspond to linear Poisson brackets. The same is true for the algebroids. The algebroids correspond, the algebroid structures in the vector bundle E correspond by the way linear Poisson structure.
So we can now exclude some Poisson structure on this regular function.
On this thing. Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's particular.
Yeah, just directly.
No. Yes. So what I was saying is that we are not considering the setting as follows. We have one of these actions, and then we know it gives us one of the derivative points. So, well, and then we can consider this portion derivative. And what we'll see is we can consider the decimal action. First thing which we'll note is that it doesn't land in the vector field, it will land in these vector fields of certain distance. So I can view this as a map to the Lie algebroid. So I can do this. In the appropriate way, this map, whereas this guys obviously vector fields which are vanishing, if I view them as sections of the algebroid, they become non-vanishing sections. So in that manner, this map just has become injective. So in this case, what I'm saying is that we have made it actually, we have put in a framework where action is free. And this is basically due to the fact that our forms which we are considering now, we also get forms, so just sections of the dual. These are also singular agents. Now, these are just the forms dual. To the vector fields.
Very superscript. Very right to left page.
This one? Okay.
Yeah.
This is the infinitesimal action. This is the infinitesimal action of the torus action. Like if you look at the infinitesimal action of the torus action, a priori it just lands in vector fields, but the point is that it actually lands in vector fields preserving this ideal. So if this thing over here is the sections of the Lie algebra. So instead of viewing it as a map here, we view it as a map here. And then the point is that although these vector fields vanish as sections of this Lie algebra, they are non-vanishing. And then this map becomes injective. When you can call it a feature. That's it, that's what.
What is GI?
GI?
GN, so
Which one?
GI, your domain of this spectrum. Just GN. Domain of A.
This obviously also got the torus.
Yeah.
This is just the infinitesimal action. My math properties are so terrible. So now we're almost ready to go to our T-duality. So what will our setting be? Well, we will consider two of these standard torus actions. Again, I'll ask two of these, I'll ask the second base. We will, the first thing is what we'll kind of run into, not that important. You remember that there was this fiber product hanging around in that rigid T-duality. Now we're a bit of a loss because this is no longer a submap, obviously, because these maps are no longer submersions. Take the fiber product and get some narrow space. Well, it's actually not that narrow. Still, it is something to keep in mind. And now I can give a definition. So when these guys are injured in our set, the first thing, well, we should have three forms as well. And you can take them smooth. And in all examples there will be, in principle, the flux which we have over here will be singular. So what we'll do is, okay, we have the standard decay actions, then we know that you get out of the torus action. For each one of them, we get one of these elliptic devices. and we can look at the corresponding Lie algebroid. And now I ask for a closed Lie algebroid. But of course, these are things with differential forms, in particular smooth forms. We can also pick smooth. This is usually the case. And now I consider the diagrams from before again. But, well, yeah, I kind of have to consider this space. But for all intents and purposes, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to consider the product and not go to define the product. And then I'm also going to ask for the existence of the form there. So I ask for the existence of TK invariant, the 2K invariant differential form over here. And then as one of the conditions as before, these conditions I want over. So I ask basically, instead of working with the differential form of the singular space, I ask for one of this, well, bigger space where it lies in, and then I ask for the conditions I want over this. That will be going over here, you can actually do all this properly. Way it works. So if this holds, then we say these are non-principal. Let me just give a neat example, which will make all this rather abstract stuff a lot more tangible. So we have T2 acting as T2. Just representation. Well, the quotient space be what? Quadrant, and hence look at what is this ideal functions. Well, I'm going to do this equal. So B is C2. And I can look at the functions vanishing. The boundaries is the axis, and what's the quotient map? Well, just send Z1, Z2 into Z1 squared, Z2 squared. And hence this ideal is simply Z1 squared, Z2 squared.
That's question. You say you consider this ideal functions by the vanishing of the boundary.
Yes.
But for instance, square root of x1 also vanishes of the boundaries.
No, but that one already smooth.
Oh, okay, so you look at the functions which sense smooth way beyond the boundary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using manifolds with corners, and it's like really smooth functions.
Yes.
I mean, for the all intents and purposes, you see over here, and you can also consider this as going to R2, and then you look at the axis. You don't actually have this coordinates. I mean, all these things will go about all these examples. They're really no coordinates. So we have this ideal, and then what's our real associated with this? Well, let me write down the dual section there. That means precisely d over 1. Where these are ones due to the rotating factors and later. And now what I can do, I can take 2 copies of this and I can establish a T-dual. if you want, I mean, right, this is kind of like, this is the torus. C2 basic rule about torus in our setting. The only thing is that we, instead of looking at C star, we actually have to include the origin. This will be the model, right? So we consider MC2, H0, until also C2. Also 0. And then you can write down a couple of T-duals, and there's actually the fun thing about it is that there's a whole bunch. The size and everything will come here. So you can take these two forms. This is again C2 times C2, and they will satisfy this hypothesis. Well, they're close. So this will be satisfied. And well, what's the kernel of this guy? It will be theta 1 and theta 2. Kernel of this guy is theta 1 tilde, theta 2 tilde. And you see that this would be a non-degenerate. This example will come back. Now, what does it get? Right? I mean, what are the conclusions you get out of T-duality in this way? And they're very similar to what we had before. You just have to replace the D algebra. So the space of the Lie algebroid differential forms, the one on n and the one on n tilde, will be as trick. Now, the double tangent bundle. So now Tm replaced by T. And these will be isomorphic as correct algebroids. Really is the same as before, with Tm replaced by this T algebroid. And now the conclusion. So the offshot, what we had before, is that a generalized complex structure on the algebroid will be transported via T-duality to a generalized complex. This is the algebra. Why the hell would I care about that? I mean, I'm just introducing some like obscure gadget is Lie algebroid, and I'm not talking about generalized complex structures. All this Lie algebroid. Yeah. The point is that this entire list of examples we gave in the beginning, well, not the entire list, but most of them, these are honest generalized complex structures. Generalized complex structures. But you may view them as elliptic structures on this Lie algebra. And in a sense, this is very different, like it's somewhat similar in spirit. First, this concept where we had generalized complex structures. You view them as one shifted symplectic forms. Now we view them as Lie algebra. This is all simpler. So then you give the proper definitions of these structures. So you can see why we care about this. Okay, this is, for now, this is what I said about T-duality. Questions for now?
I have questions. So this example, I don't know, there is something related to Hamiltonian actions, moment times.
Yes, well, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
This is also what we call toric.
Okay, but if I start with Hamiltonian actions, but I know that you reduce speed.
I mean, this is a general one, that's not gonna work. I mean, I'm wondering about that. No. Now it's really torrid. Really torrid. Hopefully, like, it will be more general. Next question.
Maybe is A tilde, the I is usually defined in infinite dimension.
Say again?
So is this locally free shape
Yes.
infinite dimension? Or is it finite?
No, I mean, it's what I just wrote down. It's a collection of vectors.
Oh, I see. So it's already finite.
Yeah. I mean, these things are replacements of the tangent bundle. And they're, as we said, it's the tangent bundle, we still get some different bases.
I mean, although you sometimes deal with the, considering loose section, but you get what you get is the finite dimension.
I mean,
This idea you define is, beginning this infinite function and
Sure.
but this shape is anyway.
I mean, this is as finite dimensional as creating vector fields. It's the same thing. So, okay, so why is that? So, if I have this, we have saw yesterday as well, but see many times, have generalized complex, then I can always wipe it, of course, to a different sign, also in this block matrix. And one of the beautiful things of the theory is that this is a Poisson structure. Now, I can say, sure, I can look following at it. I can look at the top wedge of this Poisson structure. This defines the section of the line level, and I can pair it with the dual. Now, what will this give me? This will give me non-linear functions. In general, very could be anything. But now, let's say definition, I call J stable if this thing over here is an elliptic function. All these examples of generalized complex structures that I gave in the beginning. So the very first example of a generalized complex structure from a manifold, which is neither complex nor symplectic, is one of the stable generalized complex structures. And what is nice about them is that they are symplectic, right? I mean, they have this elliptic divisor. So away from this elliptic divisor, they are symplectic type, and they degenerate in a very controlled fashion along this device. So, I mean, there are other reasons to be interested in them, but they are also very good testing grounds for generalized complex geometry. They're quite interesting. They're simple, but they're interesting enough to display good behavior. Now, what we can do, following result, we can consider stable generalized complex. And how to gauge equivalence, these are actually equivalent, say, one-to-one correspondence of symplectic structures on this BL plus some recipe conditions. So we have a class of generalized complex structures which we may view as symplectic structures on the algebroids. And that, in fact, allows you to do that all kinds of things with them. You can do very simple constructions. And this is what we employ a lot in algorithms. And then this is somewhat similar. Much simpler than like theory. It's a one shape reflecting thing. But somewhat similar. And now we have something to do our T-duality. Right? Because now I have over here a generalized complex structure on my Lie algebra. So point can do T-duality. Stable. Provided there is a vortex. Luckily for us, I mean, easy to describe. All the interesting phenomena already happens. So I can just explain the example for that, and then you have got everything. So what's the structure which is going on here? Well, the easiest way to write it down as a generalized complex structure is in the schemorial description. If you're familiar with this, then this is the generalized complex structure you're considering on C2. If you're not familiar with this, you can look at, or you can use this correspondence, and then you will see, I'm sure you're going to mess up an I somewhere. Then it will be a singular syntactic form given by this expression. And now we want to show it, but we could also have done something slightly different. We could have put an I over here, for instance. Because they're not readable, right? And then, well, this will be the real part of the singular form. Could also consider this guy. So this will be the syntactic form associated with the generalized complex structure and an I form. Basically. Now I can just apply this point of view and negate this map what T-duality does to this structures using this form. That big E to the power of this guy and wedge it. These forms and integrate and all this. And what we'll see is that if we apply our T-duality to omega with this form, then our T-duality will give us standard complex structure. This one. F1 minus, then we'll go to itself. So we have one of these stable generalized complex structures, which is T dual to itself. Okay, that's nice. The other is T dual to the complex. No singularities. All of them will just standard complex structure or C2. So that's quite nice. But you might be wondering, raising right now, whether how I insist of using these very particular two forms. There's a whole bunch of choices you can make. What is this one? Well, there is a bug / feature to the theory. So what happened before, I had some together with the generalized complex structure. It lifted to generalized complex on this Lie algebra. I applied T-duality. I got some new tilde generalized complex on this dual V algebroid. And I was happy because in the end, this will actually correspond to an actual generalized complex structure. But this doesn't happen in check. If I were to pick almost any other differential form to apply in T-duality, I will get something, but it will be a generalized complex structure on this Lie. It will not descend to something like some real structure. So that's, I mean, it's sad, one can say. It's also a feature of the theory. It's not something you can, it is what it is. And, well, and using this local picture, you can really start going around these examples I mentioned at the beginning. So, as 1 times is 3, for instance, has a nice stable structure. And you can show that this guy is T-dual. Complex as 1 times is 3. Okay. Those. Yeah, anything can happen. So you can have a stable structure in CP2, you can show us you can pick some forms who will continue to stable structure. Sometimes you will continue to complex structure, like honest complex structure. It's 2 times as 2, you can do similar stuff. And one thing which we show as well is that all these stable structures, they are invariant with locals. And we actually show that T-duality commutes local. If you have that, you can suddenly start putting up a whole bunch of other examples, like NCP2 and CP2 bar. And if these things are generalized complex, they again show that they can be dual, same generalized complex structures.
Sorry, it is blowing up at the next point of the torus, right?
Exactly. That's indeed the important point. Somehow that these fixed points, in many points of view, they actually help very much because they're great points of blowing up. You cannot blow up in a smooth point of the device, so a little bit of crap. You can blow up fixed point. Okay. Let's see. I have 7 more minutes. Okay. So it's my turn. So any questions on this?
Is this duality treated by the age or?
Very good question. So in all examples, actually age is 0.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Which I mean, that definitely is room for H's in this situation, and preferably. I mean, of course, we want ordinary generalized complex structures, right? So that means that the H should be smooth. It shouldn't be one of these differential forms. And yeah, there is space for that. But now our examples somehow. But let me say something which you might also be interested in, is that one of the things we saw was that so yesterday that this H is a source of topology change. And I mean, all these examples which I gave over here, they're actually, I mean, here I put a whole bunch of self-T-duals, which is nice. But you can also show, just an example, let's give a very simple example. Let's consider CP2 blown up at the point. Let's consider S2 times S2, and let's consider TCP2 CP2. Now these two all have the torus actions, and or at least topologically, they all live over a square. And now what you can show is that somehow this, with all the h is 0, is enough to show that all these spaces are T-dual. So what's happening is somehow that the fact that we allow the torus actually to have fixed points gives us a new sort of topology change of our manifolds on the T-duality. So even with H0, we have very interesting examples of topology. Yeah, H should also become non-zero at some point. Okay. In the last 5 minutes, I'd like to say something which I think is very cool. And also as application is beyond this entire theory, is because I gave you a nice definition. But one thing which should come to a question is, do they exist? In T-duals. Before that, there is a very nice condition you can put on H to ensure that in one sense T-duals exist. And that construction is very explicit, so very yesterday. Usually you have some germ plots of the torus action, and you use that out of the H and you use that to hook up something. So what do we need? We want to do something similar here. Is we need the germ plots we need the germ plots. We need a classification of these torus actions. But then we see that we get this that's such a thing that germ plots. Now, luckily for us, we can go back into the archives. Not that old, exactly remember. Yeah, there is a classification of torus actions of this form, by elliptic design. And they classify them. And it's not, it's a subtle business. Why? Well, the main reason it's subtle is that there is no zero. Right? If you work with principal bundles, you can always consider your manifold times the group, and that's your principal torus bundle, your principal bundle. That space doesn't exist here because we have some, if I would do that, there would be some cracks in the whole torus and not smooth. So what Hickett and Salem do is that they consider kind of a fine classification of these. So what they say that these things are locally equivalent. I have two torus actions. These are general, or very general. Something like effective exposures. So I assume that they have the same base. Okay, that's a reasonable thing to do. And I assume that for any point in the base, there exists a Tn equivariant diffeon such that pi inverse u is isomorphic. So that the orbits, there's no orbit space about the orbits. Okay, seems reasonable. But it is subtle. It is incredibly subtle, and it took us a long time and a long fight to come across this. Why is it subtle? Because you're not allowed to reparameterize the torus action. You have to keep that one fixed. So these three spaces, although they record actions, they have a normal form. If you want that normal form, you have to parameterize the torus. So these three over here are not locally equivalent in the sense of Hickett. So it's very simple. Okay, if you assume this kind of definition, then there is a nice proposition which, if you give you one of these actions, then all locally equivalent ones ones correspond. Again, surprisingly somehow, just to the ordinary cohomology of the base, something for ordinary torus actions. That's somehow a bit surprising. Okay, just to wrap up. So that's great. So this is our third class, and we can use this description to actually do something more. Can I take 2 more minutes? But just a classification and just the third class. We want a connection. And well, if I were to give you S1 acting on C via rotation, in our framework, then it will be kind of clear what the connection should be. Connection 1 form should just be theta. Right? If this was a free, if I would do this on C star, it would be immediately agree with me. Now I'm just saying I can extend this to the origin. It's an elliptic. So what is a connection 1 form? It's really the same as a 1 form. It's a 1 form. It will be invariant. And if I plug in something coming from the investment action, it will have to give me back. Now, the great thing of this theory, which is very nice also outside of study, is that we can realize the starting class as the actual curve of the connection. So if M and tilde both have standard actions, if we take connections, connection 1 forms, theta tilde. And what you can show is that d theta minus d theta tilde. Although a priori these are singular forms, this corresponds to the A in the starting class. And with that, we can show that T-duality is setting of species. Think on that note, thank you for your attention.